All right, everybody, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. Of course, I do see almost 200 people are waiting. People are filtering into chat as well, so we shouldn't have any problems. We got lots of stuff to talk about today. First, we're going to get to a little bit of Trump's short list for running mates, because there are several things I need to say about this. Number one, that this is only part of the short list, and number two, it was fairly off the cuff. Not a bad list. Some people on the list are better than others, and they're sort of no-brainers that they'd be on the list anyway. So we'll be talking about Trump's prospective running mate. Of course, he will be the nominee for the GOP, short of dying or shenanigans at the convention, but he'll probably choose a running mate before then anyway, just to undercut Nikki Haley, who's actually insane. Literally insane. She's actually going to stay in past South Carolina, even when she gets crushed in her own home state. So there's nothing more to be done about that. She's gone off the deep end. JD Vance weighing in on Europe and NATO, actually. It is reasonable to ask if U.S. support has made Europe neglect its security. Well, it has. If you look at some of the militaries in Europe, 4 tanks is probably not sufficient for a nation that's flush with cash. It's a case across Western Europe, decadent countries and other NATO allies, of course, outside of the EU, have simply not bellied up to the bar. That was sort of the point of NATO, actually. Bitcoin is coming back, surging, actually. And disclaimer, this is not financial advice, but I will say that I hold a great deal of Bitcoin. I got $32,000 worth of Bitcoin or something right now. So, when I talk about Bitcoin, I am actually invested in it. Just to let people know, we've got something that other people, they thought that I was drinking pork-flavored coffee. Because I made a remark on Twitter about that earlier. Starbucks in China unveils new pork latte to mark Lunar New Year. So I will be talking about that. My thoughts on this particular culinary venture. To be clear, I have not had pork-flavored coffee. I'll give my thoughts on that in depth. Some depth, anyway. Michigan polling. We've got another new poll from Michigan from Epic MRA, actually, which sounds hilarious. With Trump at +4, this is in line roughly with the aggregate. And if Michigan ends up being like the break-even point within the next election, then Trump's going to run away with it. Because, Georgia, North Carolina would be off the table. Pennsylvania might go blue, but there's no guarantee of that either. That's more of the 50-50 sum, Pennsylvania, actually, at this point. So we'll be talking about some polling. And then we've also got the use of the decimal point. It could be 150 years prior to what historians originally believed. This has nothing to do with politics. I know that tends to be my forte, but I like to mix it up with some history and some science and stuff like that. So anyway, we'll get to super chats. We'll get to Rumble rants. We'll get to politics. We'll get to pork-flavored coffee. It's an eclectic channel, so people pay me for. The Happy Plague Doctor. Today is a good day for garden talk. It's still frozen outside, unfortunately. I do have biochar still charging over there. Tomorrow, I will probably mix in the potting soil, the pot sherds, and whatever else I decide to put in there, because I've got actually some peat pots and planters coming. And so it's not long out. It's only basically 3 weeks until I'm going to plant the hot weather crops indoors first. First in the little ones, then you transfer them to the bigger pots as needed. It kind of depends on their growth rate. With the biochar that I'm making, though, I expect it to be pretty fast. Hair 2, I'm digging the new Lifetime sticks. Luncheon hammer. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. What you having for lunch? Get yourself a BLT sub. Sparky, greetings, fearless leader. Greetings to you as well. Alex Bogey. Putin is also not giving up Navalny's body because the faux election is in March. The funeral could lead to riots, as he was from Moscow and got 30% there. Yeah, no, I have a feeling that it's because they poisoned him, and they're waiting for the poison to decompose in the body until it's no longer detectable for autopsy purposes. Simple Logic 90. Hey, Sticks, have you seen the $4 billion Trump has in Truth Social stocks? Tim Pool thinks this is how he could pay off those so-called settlement. Yeah, he has to pay in order to appeal. I don't know exactly how that works, but yeah, he can just sell stock in Truth Social, I guess. If he sells off entirely and divests himself, he can also get back on Twitter, maybe. He has to pay a fine, but Once you sell the stock, you get the money to pay the fine. Sparky, your boy Navalny was visited 2 days before he died by his Western-sponsored lawyer who dropped off some medicine for him. Yeah, well, I mean, as we've seen, Westerners can be co-opted by foreign powers. Let's look at the current member of the Election Commission in San Francisco who happens to have been born in Hong Kong. By the way, I'm a little bit stuffy today. I don't know exactly why. It might be cat dander. It might be dust. I'm not exactly sure. So let's get into some news. Breaking news from the Calvin Coolidge Project. President Trump says that Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Byron Donalds, Kristi Noem, and Tulsi Gabbard are on his short list for vice president, which is obvious. Those would be names that he would consider. I think some more than others, by the way. It's a decent list. All of them would be at least acceptable. I would say Byron Donalds is probably on the bottom. Tulsi Gabbard, I would put on the top myself. I think that she ticks literally all of the boxes, and people wouldn't have to worry like, hey, if Trump has a coronary or something, and we get our first female president unelected, at the very least, she'd be coherent. We know that she's too young to have probably significant health issues. She was a Democrat before, switched over to be independent and so forth. And so no problems, I think. Definitely people would ramble about Russia and shit like that, because Tulsi Gabbard doesn't want to, create World War III. But they're going to complain about that anyway, because they think that Trump is a Russian agent. I would like to point out something. This does not mean that is, some people are misinterpreting it. They're saying, well, this is his short list for VP. No, this is what the person talking to him brought up with regards to Laura Ingraham, with regards to people that were commonly speculated to be on the short list. And he confirmed indeed they are. I don't think that he has a true short list yet in totality. I think he has a list of different people that he's considering, and people that were not mentioned are also on that list. I'm sure that he's considering others as well. There are some names that are off the list. We know that he's not considering, for example, Mike Pence. Mike Pence is off the list. He's not considering Nikki Haley. Now, I do not believe that she is going to be chosen as running mate. And if Trump did choose her, I'd say, well, considering the fact that she's batshit, I'll still vote for you, but it'll be a little bit more reluctant than it would have been before, because it would show to me that he hasn't changed his hiring practices, which was a sticking point in his first term, and I'm hoping he gets a second. I think that the most likely is Kristi Noem. I think that she's more of the safe bet. If he really wants the meme energy and stuff, though, he'll choose Tulsi Gabbard. If I were his advisor, if I could choose his running mate for him, I would choose Tulsi Gabbard. She's young. She's reasonably attractive. She's well-spoken. She's got a military background. That's going to be a big thing. She's a little bit more hawkish, admittedly, than I would like. Otherwise, though, she ticks basically all of the qualifiers. Former Dem turned independent. She would become a Republican, of course, to be running mate. That would be good. You'd drag in more independent voters, people who liked her when she was a Dem, maybe for one reason or another. And they're like, well, I haven't soured on Tulsi Gabbard. And, she'll be one heartbeat away from the presidency. I think that I'll vote for Donald Trump. They may have not necessarily the most positive feelings about him, but maybe they really like her. And she's charismatic while being female. All of these things are good ideas in a running mate. Kristi Noem, I think, would be a close second on this list. Ron DeSantis would do fine. I would have no problem with Donald Trump choosing Ron DeSantis, by the way, as a running mate either. I just don't know that he would actually take the role. I don't know that he'd be willing to take it. Tim Scott would be more, you're trying to, it would be almost a Pence move. I know that his ideology is not the same as Pence, but it would be sort of like I'm trying to calm down the establishment. Tim Scott is more quiet, more solemnly spoken. You could do worse. Ramaswamy would be, you want a firebrand, but I don't think that he's actually on the short list. I don't think that he is. Because Donald Trump does not want to share the stage with another charismatic male. If it's a charismatic female like a Gabbard, it's perfectly fine. It's just Donald Trump's character. Donald's, I think, is way in the back. And by the way, they didn't bring up Larry Elder. I'm sure he's in consideration. I'm sure that there are others. It could be, some dark horse person from the House of Representatives with a safe seat, or some fairly popular governor. There are a plethora of people that could be chosen. Unfortunately, there are also probably shitty people on that list, like Ted Cruz might be on the list. Ted Cruz is doing better than expected in his Senate role. I will give him credit where credit is due. But I wouldn't really want him as VP because I don't know that he really has executive qualifications. So when you look at this particular clip, again, link in the description, not archived because it's a video clip on Twitter. Keep in mind that this is not the full list, and he's not necessarily being truthful when he says he's seriously considering a couple of these people. I do not believe that Ramaswamy is seriously being considered. Possibly, I could be wrong, but I don't think that Donald Trump's personality would allow that. Tucker Carlson could be on that list. Again, the problem is the charisma, although they do seem to be fairly friendly with one another. When Trump steps into the room, he wants to be the only one that the cameras are focused on. Even his body language purveys this. Like when he's meeting with, foreign leaders and stuff, and he sort of muscles his way to the front, and he ignores the lesser countries entirely to stand next to someone that's meaningful or something like that. Let's see. Alex Bogey, I agree he was murdered. Putin doesn't want protest. Yeah, true. The dashing rogue, Sergei Tretyakov, was ahead of the curve. The Soviet Empire collapsed, but the nation of Soviet boomers are still around playing the Brahmin class. Scar Phoenix, 20 clankers in recovery. Congrats on another day sober. Fuck drugs and alcohol. Also, congrats, Sticks, for rising from the gutter. Use cigarette butts to this. Mr. Wonderful, the CIA took out the Russian guy is what they do. Trump is inevitable, but what is your worst case scenario in terms of attempts to stop that? Well, the worst case scenario is the Republican Party commits electoral suicide by brokering their convention and cock-blocking him, loses in a landslide to Biden, giving them a supermajority, and the Democrats run roughshod over the whole country for 4 years. So, Wartooth 88. Can you ask that greedy bugger Stolas to thumb through his infernal Rolodex? I need the true name of a reliable wrath demon. Andrew Seberg. Hey, Sticks, did you see Remington Firearms is packing up and leaving New York? Their factory has been in operation for over 200 years. Not surprising. I'd leave New York, too, if I were there. G-Phaser. If Trump wins, imagine Kamala leaving the VP position only to be succeeded by one who torpedoed her presidential bid back in 2016. That's another reason to choose Gabbard. There's a personal grudge match there. It'd be fucking hilarious. Apache. Morning, Sticks. I'm hoping Tulsi is VP. She's perfect, especially since she's become pro-Second Amendment and a former Dem. Would love to see her have round 2 with Harris. It'd be one for the history books. That debate would be lit. Sparky. Don't fool yourself. Most Russians have never even heard of Navalny. That 30% was long ago in a Moscow mayoral election. Nationally, he never had more than 0.5%, but he was 100% a CIA stooge. Well, possibly, yeah. I noticed the CIA always gets blamed, though, when something bad happens. I mean, if they're that good, why wouldn't you fucking side with the CIA if they're that effective? They must be doing something right. All the coke in the world gets run by them, so yeah. Webster's Wares. Good morning, clankers. Hello from Endicott, Washington, deep behind enemy lines. Get your custom Trump 2024 gear at websterswares.com. Get free shipping using code STICKS at checkout. Clanker merch soon. Yes, indeed. This is from Webster's Wares. So is the flag behind me. By the way, I've got a little bit of an update that I'm going to have to do in the following days with regards to some of these merch shout-outs that are being made. I'm going to have no choice but to do that. No problem. There's nothing problematic or bad, or you're not doing anything wrong or anything. But I just need to address the issue because so many people are piling aboard the channel at this point, especially in the wake of me going on Timcast, that it's becoming a logistic issue. And so I'm going to have to fiddle around and address it. So stay tuned. Zionist cuck. Trump and Putin have been seen amongst the very same small hats. Why is that? Also, they both have kissed the herpes wall. That's sort of a rite of passage for politicians. It's just a thing. Try finding one that hasn't, It's just is as it is. Next news story, J.D. Vance. Europe must stand on its own 2 feet on defense. It is reasonable to ask if U.S. support has made Europe neglect its security. Well, we don't have to ask the question. Quite clearly, the Western European nations have been doing so for some time. Some of them more than others. Like France has nukes. The UK has nukes. That's great. They've got aircraft carriers. I think the British briefly were renting out one of the French ones. Germany has a considerable military capability. They pump out Leopard tanks and shit like that, and they do look cool. I don't know. I'd prefer an Abrams. I think I'd still probably stick with that as the standard battle tank at this time. I'm not taken in by the meme that is the Armata tank from Russia or the Leopard. And I think I'd prefer US made for that, although they are gas guzzlers, apparently. the difference between the main battle tanks used in the world is actually quite sheer. I've researched a little bit about that, and it's like, what? Okay, so the Abrams is really great, but good luck fucking fueling it, asshole. The fuel truck has to go directly behind it to escape from enemy fire or something. This is something that I'd like to say. If you look at European countries, you'll notice that those on the fringes have decent military capabilities. So Italy has several helicopter carriers. Greece has over 1,000 fucking tanks. The Polish are rearming. You've got Finland on the border with Russia, of course, increasing its civilian militia, openly encouraging people to own and continue utilizing weapons after their mandatory, sub-military service, which I think are all good things. If you look at the more insular parts of Europe, so you look at Belgium, the Netherlands, to Ireland or something, you see a fairly lackadaisical approach to military endeavors, fairly lackadaisical. Of course, NATO growing now. Finland just joined up. Sweden is now marked to join. The Hungarian government has said, yeah, well, we're going to vote yes. You're fine. You can enter for what little it's worth. And hopefully they'll pay their 2%. The problem is that when we see like criticism of Donald Trump, oh my God, he's saying that he wouldn't defend NATO nations that aren't marking their goals. That's to get them to mark their goals. That's to get them to pay their fair share so that, number one, the United States taxpayer doesn't have to shoulder such a heavy burden as we have for decades. That's number one. And number two, so the alliance will be stronger. Because what if it's the U.S. that gets attacked? In the unlikely scenario that all hell breaks loose, we can count on our allies actually having the capability of helping us in a military response. Right now, for some nations in Europe, that's not the case. A record number of NATO nations, by the way, including the Germans, are now hitting that benchmark. Some of them are actually outstripping it. I think Poland and Hungary and a few others actually going ahead of their mandatory spending with regards to their militaries. Good on them. The other thing, though, that I would combine with this, and if I were the president of the United States, I would actually backburner this, unlike Trump, and I would make it a frontline issue. I'd be encouraging the expansion of the concept of a civilian militia all throughout Europe, especially, and into Canada. I'd be pressuring them diplomatically. Hey, relax your goddamn anti-gun laws. In the Netherlands, you realize what a process it is to get a firearm that isn't air-powered? Although I would point out that some of the more expensive air-powered rifles there can kill a bear or an elk. So there is that. I don't think you're going to be fighting the Russians with, CO2 cartridges, though. I just don't think that that's a likelihood. In the unlikely event, though, that NATO is directly hazarded and has to mobilize for full-scale war, it makes sense to have allies that are actually competent in the military sense. Like, for instance, Sweden. Okay, you make delicious MREs. Your military rations are definitely a cut above. The strawberry muesli and the fucking mushroom stew and all of these they're delicious. You must have put a lot of money into this, by the way. But your military, nobody takes it seriously. Sweden in the old days used to have a top-tier military. Like Carolus and so forth. There's a fabled song about that by Sabaton for a reason. You were hardcore. You overran considerable amounts of land and won many battles and were pretty fucking, it was bitching. Now the Swedish military is, I don't know, it barely exists. It's like you got complacent for so long in the wake of the end of the Cold War that you said, well, Big Brother America will take care of any problems we have, We don't have to do anything. Now all of these European countries are having to rearm. Trump, by the way, in the end will get his wish. They will, like it or not, end up spending more on their militaries. It's kind of a matter of how they spend it, though. I say that we'll give the Swedish a hall pass, though. Since your MREs are so good, we'll just let you spend 2% of your GDP just pumping out MREs, and you can sell them to the other NATO countries. You'll be the food supplier or something. I'll give the Swedish a hall pass on that one. But Vance, who I like a lot in politics, He is correct. Europe needs to be able to defend itself. We cannot do it on our own. We don't have the means. There are too many possible complicating factors in such a large-scale war that the United States is incapable of singularly defending its NATO allies. They have to at least have some military capabilities on their own. If you're part of an alliance and part of the agreement is being breached, no, I would say at some point you can't defend them. It's not like I don't want to. I don't want the Polish to get invaded. They meet their quota, so it's just an example. I don't want to see the Belgians get invaded by the Chinese or something like that. But if you're not meeting that goal, are we actually going to be capable of mustering the kind of response to even defend our allies? Is the rest of Europe? Because I mean, imagine shit pops off in Estonia or something like that. Who's going to be the first responders when the articles are invoked? The United States is in the next hemisphere over. It's going to be the Europeans having to respond. If an enemy therefore does invade, Russians, Chinese, the fucking Iranians, Rwanda invades you or something, you're going to have to mount a more regional response first. You're going to have to hold your own long enough for a coherent response to even be organized. And so it could be a fucking problem. Vance is fundamentally correct, as is Trump. Hatred Copter 424, 782 days sober from booze and 80 pounds lighter. Clank, good on you, dropping a vice. Sparky, that's it, Sticks, be an apologist for the CIA. Well, I'm not saying that back in the day when I used to use psychotropics, I wouldn't have minded having a CIA connection for some of that white powder, but those days are behind me. They are the world's biggest drug runners. Ryan McDonald, USA. Hey, Sticks, have you seen the Helldivers meme lore? No, I don't think that I have, actually. Angry Bellsprout. Can Trump's delegates go Vivek if something happens? Probably, well, you've dropped out, so probably not, no. I mean, if they broker the convention, they could theoretically choose whoever they want, but they'd be crazy to do so. And then they'd lose. It's like Nikki Haley's thing might be like her Hail Mary is she stays in, has the most delegates of anyone but Trump, waits for a brokered convention, but it's like, you're going to lose in the general. Nobody's going to vote for you. OMG puppies. In the middle of a fight over Ukraine funding, who benefits from Navalny dropping dead? He was a minor white supremacist activist and evidence that M16 and CIA using him for color revolution op. Well, they didn't seem very successful on that one, unlike their coke running. Send your faces. Please don't send more super chats. No, I'm still gobbling him down right now. I got to buy ammo for the AR-15. Can't wait. I bought 100 rounds, actually, but I bought 223 at first. I was just getting some, basic. I want to run them through the gun and, make sure there's no jams, everything works properly when I get it before I pop the real rounds in there for, home defense or, animal with rabies wanders onto the property. Something stronger than the basic bitch rounds. They have actually incendiary rounds in 5.56, and they're very expensive. But I'm thinking if I shoot something and it makes a little fireball, that would be quite interesting now, wouldn't it? You immolate the paper target that you're firing at. I'm considering getting a couple packs of those. It's like $4 a bullet, but just for shits and giggles or something. Imagine the look on Kamala's face if she ends up debating Tulsi in the VP debate. Not enough purple drank to soften that blow. Oh, she'd be loaded. She would drink before the debate. You know that. I know everyone knows that. Dat Pie over there. A Tulsi VP combined with a Scott Pressler RNC chair and a Lee Zeldin Mujahideen ground game could make New York 4852 red, especially after the state blatantly exposed itself as a banana republic. Long shot, very long shot, but it's beginning to look like it might actually be possible, if not in 24, maybe in a future election. But yes, Zeldin and Pressler and some of these other people, don't know. Is that male or... I don't know what the fuck that is. They need to be involved, definitely, in the political game. Alan Smithy, I need more soup or chops. Om nom nom. Sparky, don't know Tulsi that well, but when I first met her, I was hoping she'd pull out. She put out all right. She put out leadership vibes. Good, bad, or indifferent on politics, Tulsi's a natural leader. She'd be a good choice for a running mate, yes. Lizard 450, Germany's military is bested by Poland. Poland has 1/6 the GDP. Germany is the worst NATO member. They are beginning to pull their weight, and they do have a high level of technological sophistication. So They can make the drones or something like that. Ramon C. GTC, your enemies will turn into biochar. Their bones, maybe. Benedict Anders, here's $5 towards your ammo fund. If you are looking for a good lubricant or cleaner, use Ballistol. I've actually got some in the room. Germans made it in 1904 and used it in World War II. Yes, I have Ballistol, actually. Absolutely, that's the go-to for gun lubrication. Yep, I've used that on my Glocks and the 22. Soon it'll be inaugurated on the AR-15 as well. By the way, Lore Blue Eyes, I won't disclose the exact DMs or anything, but she's kind of caught up about the fact that I'm getting an AR because I joked about how I was going to name it after her. I'm actually going to name it the Hog after David Hogg, I think, because that'd be even funnier. Let's see here. Sigil Stone, the Abrams is nice, but the M10 Booker is looking much nicer. It's our new tank. The military is just getting them. About half the weight of the Abrams, so easier to transport and more fuel efficient. Sounds good. More fuel efficiency. The environmentalist friendly tank. Max Health Pro. Any clankers interested in anti-aging? Visit maxhealthproshop.com for the best. Okay, they were just turning around. Best longevity supplements on the market. Code STICK666 for 10% off. Thanks to Nina P and Jack S. That's about all. Peace out. What do fuck? The U.S. is indirectly funding Europe's free healthcare by funding their defense. Absolutely. Wasted Bonehead, good morning from the grave. As a response to your morning video on Nikki, I think she should hire me. I could run her zombie campaign well. I'm undead after all. Also, how dare you steal my bone meal? Yes, when Bonehead comes over for Biltong, I'm going to take a couple of his ribs out, Marilyn Manson style. Not for sexual purposes, though. I'm going to grind them up and put them in the biochar. The Nerdwire, basic bitch round still kill a man. I like stacking volume for my ammo. Liberal Lunacy, 101st Airborne. When I got to Iraq in 03, our Humvees were soft skin. It was hell. Rip, my brothers. Yes, rest in peace. OMG Puppies. The Texan SS air rifle is a beautiful gun. Fires a 45 lead slug at 1,000 feet per second, but slow single round loading rate. My AR is from Daniel Defense. I highly recommend them. Yes, I can't wait to do that shout out. It's going to be great. It's got my logo engraved on it and everything. Brandon Andujar, thoughts on President Lula dunking on Israel? I didn't see that one. I think I didn't look at that story. I saw it headlined on Ground News the other day, but I didn't look into it. I'll have to do so. Anyways, let's get to some merch shout outs here. These links are all in the description, by the way. Pinned at the top is my books blog. You can buy books there as well. We've got ebay.com. STR Pumpkin Fire Crafts, of course. Again, links in the description. So you can buy your Sticks merch there. eBay store with Pumpkin Fire. Homemade, both leather and metal things. You've got bookmarks, you've got keychains, you've got belt chains, and then you've got also commemorative spoons with the Ouroboros logo on them. We've also got BiltongUSA.com. Keep in mind you can use code STICKS there for free shipping. And you can get your delicious meat, and there's other Sticks merch as well, mugs, tumblers, and shirts. Wicked Needle Embroidery, where you can get hats, actually. And also heritageheirloomseedcompany.com, again, link in the description, where you can also use code STICKS, and you can get free shipping on your survival seed buckets. Highly recommended. Yeah, that's now a thing. A lot of people sponsoring the channel. Merch is cool. I like having my logo out there because it's mimetic in nature. It's occult in nature. I like seeds. I like bookmarks. I mean, I need a lot of them because, I don't know how many books I have at this point, but it's a nice little library. I need to get like a nice big oaken shelves for stuff. Sparky, she'd put out, not she'd pull out. Thanks for ruining the joke. Garrett, have you heard about Soros buying out 220 radio stations around the country? Bad for the 2024 elections. Well, Soros and Bloomberg and people like that pour enormous amounts of their fiat cash into various states, and it doesn't seem to always have much of an effect, so I'm not worried. Flytrap. Sticks, the difference between 223 and 556 is how you measure. For larger than varmint, use soft point ammo. I want to get some incendiary 556. Like it blows up in a little fireball when it hits the target. It's cool as fuck. You can also get, it's called Dragon's Breath for shotguns. That's a similar concept. They had some really good, when I went to the shoot shop to, do the background check. So you have a waiting period in Vermont, unfortunately, 3 days. so I have to wait till Friday to get my AR. They had some really good shotguns there, and I'm thinking about when I go there, maybe I'll buy one of those, and then I'll order some Dragon's Breath ammo. Because, I mean, nobody wants to be lit on fire trying to invade your home, so that would be a sticking point for the average trespasser. Yeah, cool as fuck. I just got to make sure they got mags for it, otherwise you have to mail order them. Salty Sloth, good day. Sticks from non-Portland, Oregon. Everyone, please check out my Insta, Crazy Dog Glass. I make glass smoking devices and jewelry. Yes, indeed. That's Crazy Dog Glass. So there's 2 G's in there. Hair, Benedict Anders. He's got a hard An. Mr. Wonderful. As an Australian who supposedly has his guns banned, I love my Marlin 3030, Benelli straight pull shotgun, and Citadel 44 Magnum lever action. Wine Country Stackin' sent $5. No comment. Thank you very much. Next news story, Bitcoin is surging back ahead. To all the people that said crypto is dead, crypto is just a meme. I still got like 30 grand worth of Bitcoin at the moment, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to hold it because I am bullish on it. So disclaimer, officially, this is not investment or financial advice. I do hold Bitcoin. I transferred most of my other crypto into Bitcoin, like just sort of swapped it out. And the reason I did that is Bitcoin has the staying power. Number one, it's the first, it's the most valuable. It's sort of the store of wealth side as opposed to the transactional side, although with certain exchange capabilities, it's not hard to use it as a method of exchanging money. Banks have been adopting it. Corporations have been adopting it. Investors are investing in it. The whales are still in on it. And what I think is that with all the negative press and stuff, you got to realize the legacy media is associated with those investors and bankers and shit in the SEC. I think they were trying to sink the price so they could buy in, force all the smaller people out of that market in order to eventually use it as a source, a means of wealth. And again, disclaimer, this is just my opinion, but I think that was what they were doing. And so I decided to stay put and hold on to it. I'm glad that I did. Because, I mean, it bottomed out for a while. There's like, oh, am I going to lose everything? And then no, now there's more money there. As I said, I'm a little bit congested today. I don't know fucking why. I'm not sick or anything like that. I'm just, sneezing and wheezing. Yeah, maybe there's an early spring after all. Puxatani Phil was right, and we're gonna have a bunch of pollen around. Razgriz 259. Trump is good at reading the room. If the crowd likes Tulsi, he's going to remember that and take it into account before making his choice. True. He's done this with the jab as well. Yeah, he's good at doing A/B testing. That's one of his strengths. Austin James. Hawaii Guard and Reserve are corrupt. Please, no Tulsi. Yeah, but she's sort of left behind the leftoidism that she suffered from in the past, it seems. I think in her case, it's genuine. Either that or she's just really charismatic and convinced me that she's genuine. Jesus. Baron Von Blair. I was a DoD contractor in Kuwait in 06, and there was a lack of hard armor. So we were ordered to bolt plywood to Humvee's sides and frames. Pissed me off royally. It was fucking pointless. Fuck war. Yeah, I mean, a couple of layers of plywood would protect you a little bit. I don't think it's going to protect against an IED, though. Big Dog, Henry 1. Who are some people that you think will run in 2028? Any big names or outsiders you think will attempt for the big chair? On the Republican side, Youngkin and DeSantis are probable, and there could be others. On the Democratic side, Gavin Newsom, he clearly has those ambitions. Kamala would be crazy to do it, but she might be crazy enough to try. So, I mean, Biden outgoing, she'd be the heir apparent because she's VP. So, Brandon Fairbanks, presidential persecution season is upon us. What is the best context to watch from? The context of the legal persecution of Trump is beginning to literally fall apart in real time. Alvin Bragg's case on indefinite hold. Jack Smith's case is being held up in court. The Fulton County case involves a prosecution that's riddled with corruption to the point where the liberals are like, fuck, we really screwed the pooch. Engeron's case there, Letitia James, is going to be on appeal anyway, so the persecution is meaningless. It helps Trump more than it hurts him. Sparky. Navalny was due to be swapped for a Russian held by the West when he died. Navalny was worth more as a fake martyr to the West than being alive in the West, so the West had his meds poisoned. Again, possible. Madoff Stittler sent $1.99. No comment. Thank you very much. There's a lot of fucking Jesus super chats. What do fuck home defense? I always worry about the day after, making sure you win in court with some idiot grandmother sitting on the jury who thinks anything other than daddy's double barrel is scary. Wasted bonehead. I guess being more like Marilyn Manson isn't a bad thing, but still, you ought to ask before removing bones. Also, I realized if I kill Sigil over my grave, he'll void his bowels. It's a no-son situation. The Nerdwire. What happens when AI hacks the stock market or kills off the power grid? I give 2 weeks until total chaos. Unfortunately, something like that could happen. Now, the big news story of the day that people had a visceral reaction to when I even talked about it on Twitter and didn't elaborate about what I was talking about. Starbucks in China unveils new pork latte to mark Lunar New Year, complete with savory sauce and meat on a skewer. Yes, indeed. The drink mixes espresso and steamed milk with dongpo braised pork sauce. So you have a pork sauce latte available in China for the Year of the Pig or whatever the fuck it is. The drink, available in about 25 Starbucks they meant to say branches, but they spelled it brances for some reason. In China, mixes espresso and steamed milk with dongpo pork sauce. The unusual combination is garnished with a square slice of pork and has an interesting flavor, according to the coffee chain. The drink, which retails about 68 won or $7.50, is dubbed the Abundant Year Savory Latte. Only in a commie country would you have to have that alliteration, by the way. Braised pork is considered a staple food during Lunar New Year that half of China can't afford, by the way. Half of America can't at this point either under Bidenomics. Pork is representative of a rich, prosperous life, wealth, strength, and abundant blessings, and the occasional coronary problem. My thoughts on pork in the coffee. All right. First thought. So don't jump down my throat because it's complex. First thought, okay, bacon and eggs is a good breakfast, right? And you have like a cup of coffee. You take it however you like. And at this point, I got the jam and bean stuff. I don't even bother putting anything in it other than a little sugar because it's not acidic at all. It's nice and smooth. By the way, Jam and Beans sent me a bunch of free coffee. Like if you eat a piece of bacon and you slug it down with the coffee, well, that's pretty tasty. The kind of smoky, porky flavor, and then like the coffee flavor, the full-bodied flavor of a dark coffee. That's pretty good. Would I want to dunk like bacon slices in the coffee? I don't think so. And again, I've never had this particular style of pork. If it's anything like other porks that are traditionally eaten in China, especially in Manchurian similar cooking, it's probably sweet. So then you don't need to add the sugar, by the way. I can see maybe it would be better than expected. It's one of those things where it's either probably pretty good or it's fucking sucks. And it kind of depends. I mean, it's Starbucks, so they might be using like totally artificial flavor or something like that. I'm wondering about what other people think about it. The idea of a pork-flavored coffee. And you know that if it's popular, if it does really well, then they'll make it a staple on their menu. To be clear, I've never eaten anything at Starbucks, nor will I. I refuse to patronize. It's basically the Apple of food. It's basically like going into an Apple store. It's fucking hipster land. Same with Panera, by the way. Just hipster, overpriced hipster stuff that like poses as like, well, it's fair trade and it's healthy and gluten-free. Well, I mean, I don't give a shit. Gluten-free coffee, that's been a thing for a while, but they'll market it that way anyway. This coffee is vegetarian. Oh, no shit. Well, the pork-flavored coffee doesn't seem to be, but all of the other ones on the menu, I guess, are. I've never gone to Starbucks. I don't think I've ever physically been inside of a Starbucks, actually. The only exception is one time I was at the store, and you know how Starbucks has those iced coffees in the little glass jars, and they didn't have any of the Java Monsters, like they were restocking them or something. So I think a couple of times at the store I got those. They're really over sugary. They're still caffeinated, so that's good, but they're really, really, really sugary. And so I'm not interested. I'm not a Starbucks fan, as you may have noticed. But pork-flavored coffee. Maybe it depends on how the pork is flavored, and I've never tried Chonbo pork, so I don't know. Maybe it's better than I would expect, but I don't think that I'd be trying it. In all honesty, I think that I'll skip that one. I'll just take coffee and then I'll have bacon on the side. Well, it's basically the same thing, but combining them is a little different. And Mr. Wonderful, Starbucks went bankrupt in coffee snob Australia and ran with their tails between their legs. Oh, that's good. Yeah, Starbucks is fucked up as a company. Far left, but then at the same time, union busters. Leftoids magically become capitalists when they're about to lose a bit of money now, don't they? Vaush knows this. Once they got 6 figures in their bank account, all of a sudden they start sounding like Ronald Reagan sometimes. Chapstick. Strawberry peach chapstick, by the way. Yeah. We're living the high life. Now we'll go to Michigan polling. 2024 Michigan, Trump v. Biden. And by the way, this is just the head-to-head polling. If you look at the polling where you consider Cornel West, RFK Jr., and Jill Stein, typically Trump exceeds expectations by a larger margin, although he doesn't get near 50 because, of course, RFK Jr. is taking some of his votes, but he rides far ahead of Biden. Here are the polls. Well, first we'll do the couple of recent polls. Fox had Trump +2. Now the Epic MRA poll, which was the other day, has Trump +4. You've also got Trump +5, Trump +8, Trump +10, Biden +2, so Emerson being the outlier there, and Trump +5. What is the aggregate? Oh, Trump is almost 5 points ahead in the aggregate of polls. And no recent poll has Trump behind. The last time Biden had a slight lead was back in last November, so it's been a while. Joe Biden at this point is poised to lose Michigan. The problem is that if he doesn't gain Georgia as well, and North Carolina is basically off the table at this point, Trump only needs one further state of any type and he wins the election. It'd be narrow, but he would win it. If the polling remains roughly the same or continues moving against Biden's direction as it has been, partially because of the border crisis, and the economy remains stagnant as it is, and foreign diplomatic efforts continue to fail as they will, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of they will, then I can't see a methodology by which you would have enough ballot printers going brr in order to actually give the election to Joe Biden. I don't think that it would be plausible in the minds of voters. I think there'd be mass riots and havoc if you tried. And at some point, the deep state might back off and say, okay, we'll deal with Donald being elected. We can't stop him without the grave risk to ourselves. We'll let him get in there and we'll just obstruct him. Or we'll let him get in there and then immediately try to remove him. I think that that's their final line. Try to remove him on day one. Say, well, he's ineligible because he's a felon or something like that. And they'll hold an impeachment vote. They probably wouldn't succeed, but they can try. Or they try to simply cock block everything that he wants to do. You know, Nancy Pelosi goes up there and tears up the speech and says, well, I'm not voting in favor. I decry any Democrat voting in favor of anything that he does because he's not even eligible to be the president. And basically, you know, fuck the American people. This could lead to an epic backlash in the 2026 election. Because if you have nothing but obstruction, the Democrats don't accomplish jack shit and hold up the government the entire time, Trump's end of the GOP will probably clear the elections pretty well. You'd have maybe a significant House majority, probably the Senate. I expect the Democrats to take the House during the 24 election. I expect them to lose the Senate, at least again, if polling remains the same as it is now. Although I may be wrong. If you do look at the House seats that have been vacated, the Republicans have the advantage of most of them being in solid red districts, whereas the Democrats are 2-1 having to defend not safe districts. So the House could go GOP. It's just typically speaking, I wouldn't expect it. I think the House GOP has lost a lot of steam because they kicked McCarthy out. Now they've got their new dude in there. He's barely doing any better. And people are, especially Republicans, tend to be fickle. If I look at Michigan polling, though, right now, if I was a Biden staffer or something, I'd be shitting my pants. Now, this is the kind of numbers you never saw in either 2016 or 2020. Trump was at least a bit behind generally in the swing states that he won. He was generally behind in the general election polling by 4 points in the final aggregate. For the general election in 2016, and he won that. He's running ahead of Joe Biden in, I think, all but one of the swing states right now. He's running well ahead in general election polling in the aggregate again. an advantage that he has never had in an election before. And he won one of those. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more like 2016 than 2020. That's my gut instinct. Sparky. Small world. Tulsi's uncle, the music minister at my brother's church. I figured I'd sweep Tulsi off her feet with my cool Clank Warrior marauding vibe, almost, but she had to go. Maybe next time. Yeah, she might be into that. I think she's married, but, you know, as you see, married politicians, they screw around all the time, so maybe you'll get a piece of that. Noobnut08. My problem with AI becoming self-aware is fundamental to any computational device. I have yet to see an abacus move its own beads. Will Gooding. I don't always send shekels to content creators on YouTube, but when I do, I prefer to send them to the Sticks Man. Stay clanky, my friends. Thank you. Half Squatch. Hello from the Call Me Hell of Denver. Could be worse. You could be in Frisco. You could be in Chicago right now. I don't think you'd want to. I think you'd rather stay in Denver. By the way, please send no more super chats. I have one more news story to cover here. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not really politics or anything, but it's interesting to me. Viatgard, you need to cover the Ryan Cook situation. Twitter Rhino and GOP candidate who got exposed as a creep. Santos made a statement. People need to be aware of these people. Please send me a Twitter DM if you have anything on the Ryan Cook situation. I'll put that in the docket for tomorrow. Noobnut08. The problem is people are either confusing its output for genuine artifact or people who are just following orders because the computer said so. Yeah, when people start taking orders from computers, you get a problem. Oh, wait, people already do that, don't even realize it. Use of decimal point is 1.5 centuries older than historians thought, supposedly. A mathematical historian at Trinity Western University in Canada has found use of a decimal point by a Venetian merchant 150 years before its first known use by German mathematician Christopher Clavius. In his paper published in the journal Historia Mathematica, Glenn von Brummelen describes how he found the evidence of decimal use in a volume called Tabulae and its significance to the history of mathematics. So now you got to imagine, a lot of you are bored in math class and a lot of you are bored in history class. I was not part of the latter group, by the way. I found it fascinating. So pretty much everyone would be bored by that particular sub-subject now, wouldn't they? The invention of the decimal point led to the development of the decimal system, and that in turn made it easier for people working in multiple fields to calculate non-whole numbers or fractions as easily as whole numbers. Prior to this new discovery, the earliest known use of the decimal point was by Christopher Clavius as he was creating astronomical tables. The resulting work was published in 1593. So yeah, apparently back in the 1440s, a decimal point was used in Venetian merchants' tabulations. This is really intriguing. Consider this. When we look at who invented what and when they invented it, keep in mind that in some cases, somebody may have invented it prior and they didn't popularize it. They didn't capitalize on it. And then the idea never took hold. It just wasn't the right time. And so it was lost to the dust of history. This happened before. This is, by the way, this is a significant thing. The use of the decimal point is ubiquitous in mathematics. Prior to that advent, a little bit more difficult now, isn't it? And of course, most people back then in the 1400s could barely do math anyway. Like they knew they had 10 cows over in this field, but they couldn't write the number 10 or something like that. Most people were fundamentally illiterate, and many of them could not even write their own names and literally had to sign with an X or initials or something like that. Apparently, some random Venetian merchant actually in administrative, I'll read the Giovanni Bianchini, that's the name of the merchant, worked as a merchant in Venice. The merchant of Venice? Fitting. For many years before being appointed to an administrative role with a major estate owned by the powerful d'Este family. In this role, he also managed assets and investments, giving him a strong background in mathematics. He also published astronomy texts, astronomy again, demonstrating his ability to plot planetary motion and to predict when an eclipse would occur. By the way, back then they thought that such things were literal sorcery. They literally referred to chemistry as alchemy, and if you had astronomical charts, at any given point, the church might find you in bad standing and excommunicate you, or worse, by the way. The finding suggests that Bianchini played a more important role in the development of math fundamentals than previously known. Van Brummelen notes that as a merchant, Bianchini would have traveled extensively, including to places in the Islamic world where math concepts were being developed, possibly influencing his use of non-whole numbers and ways to represent them more easily. trying to tie that in for woke purposes with the so-called Islamic Golden Age, which never actually existed, but we'll get past that. Just fascinating to me. I like history. I don't like math. I can do long division in my head, but I'm not a fan of having to do so. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and you basically got your basics covered. You don't actually need those fucking polynomials. Yeah, in real life, unless you're a mathematician or something, generally you don't have to solve for x. In engineering or something like that, you probably need to know advanced math. I took college prep math, all 3 levels that I was required to take, and I got good grades in it. Like, I'm not bad at it. I took pre-calc, but I never went beyond that because I'm like, what the fuck? What am I going to use this on a day-to-day basis for? Sparky. Tulsi's mostly Samoan. Don't let her good looks fool you. She could literally kick any Democrat candidate's ass, and all of those on the 2020 Democrat debate stage combined. Yeah, no, she's got full-on military training. Yeah, of course she'd kick your ass. Dread Clown. Sticks, first shat. Trying herb gardening, raised bed in Florida. Any plant recommendations? I always get white spidery fungus on bottom of leaves and the garden dies. I've never really grown anything in that kind of climate. So I wouldn't be the person to ask. I'm in New England, so I'm at the opposite end of the eastern seaboard, up in cold fucking Skyrim, basically. Here, it's a lot less humid than it is in Florida. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Probably raise the bed further and have good drainage. That might help. Biochar probably would help because it'll tend to accumulate moisture when it's too wet, and then vent it out to the soil when it's too dry. But although it's never really dry in Florida, so I don't know. And a follow-up. Oh, actually, you said the same thing twice. Mr. Medina, Sticks just picked up The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. Any thoughts on this read? Manly P. Hall is interesting. If you're interested in Hall's works, by the way, recommendation time, I would look into Rudolf Steiner. I would look into Rudolf Steiner's works, Anthroposophy, former Theosophist. You might like Blavatsky works or Annie Besant or something like that if you're into that sort of compilation style. No significant thoughts on that particular work. I've done a few Hall editions, yes, but I was more into Steiner's works actually than Manly P. Hall. Although again, I have edited some of them. It's like originally my literary project was literally just I went on Amazon, right? Is back when I wasn't making a lot of money. And I wanted to get books on the occult because I'm interested in spiritual topics. And I realized that a shit ton of the cheaper editions were nothing more than scans of archive.org material that were already freely available from their giant library. And they had simply taken the original PDFs and given them new cover art. Back in the day, you could do that on Amazon. You can't do it anymore. So they can't make their shit editions. And so I said, well, I can either spend $50 on the properly formatted edition, or I can spend $8 on basically something I can get for free online, or I can make my own edition from that online edition. And so I'd take those, I'd transcribe them, I'd properly format and edit them, and I'd keep the price low. And so that's basically how my books blogs begun. By the way, again, link at the top pinned on YouTube if you happen to be there to my books blog. And that was my goal originally. And I have kept the cost as low as possible while still making some profit this entire time for that reason. Still make a lot of money. Not going to complain about it. But yeah, the editions back in the day before I started doing it, most of them sucked dick, in all honesty. Essential Liberty, been down with a nasty bug worse than Coof. I'll DM on X right now. It will be from an actual company, Bearded Grizzly Ammo, mtpew.com for ammo. Nice. King of Biltong, good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping on your Biltong using code STICKS on biltongusa.com and antonsusa.com. Get your official Clank meat and merch shipped right to your door. Hashtag Clank Nation. By the way, I think that Anton is sending me a block of suet after it was mentioned the other day. Looking forward to that. You know, you can pound like nuts and berries and seeds into it and feed it to the birds. They fucking love it. And apparently you can make candles out of it. So I'm going to be experimenting. I'm going to try to make a bacon-scented candle over here. Think that would be fun. Maybe I'll sign it and auction it off or something. Sticks, Hex, and Hammer's exclusive bacon-scented candle. That would be a funny one. Cyberdemon 1542. Why are you against supporting Ukraine? Do you not realize that victory for Russia equals victory for China? Will Trump negotiate in favor of Russia? They're going to have to negotiate at this point. There's no other alternative. That's number one. It's just pragmatic. And number two, I'm not against Ukraine at all. They have a right to defend themselves, and I condemn the war that's being waged there. But what are we supposed to fucking do about it is my question. How much money and how much ammo are we going to send there on a losing proposition? We've been in a number of that's like saying, well, if you don't support the war in Iraq, then you want Saddam Hussein to invade Kuwait or something like that. Sparky, and by the way, again, please send no more super chats because we're going up on an hour, so I do need to do I need to do charcoaling and stuff. Sparky, often in the past, things are in common use before it occurs to anyone to make a note of it. For example, pre-mass media, new words were in common use for 15 years or more before they were written. Absolutely. Things are constantly innovated, and the person didn't have the means or the will in some cases to popularize some invention or something, so it remains obscure for 200 years. Anyways, I'm going to go offline. I thank you to the nearly 4,000 people who watched live. I will be back tomorrow, of course, with more news and random rants and shit like that too. Of course, talking about pork-flavored coffee. Not exactly the most breaking news story of political significance, but I could not look that one over. I might even do a one-off tomorrow about the same subject because it's so fucking funny. Oh, yeah. I'll be back tomorrow. No worries. I'll be live on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. And we'll talk more about all sorts of cool stuff because I enjoy myself when I get to do this. That's about all. Peace out.